given such a questions, how do you go about solving it? Right, so let's try to understand the questions. This is a fractions. The denominator, it's combinations of surds and real numbers. Right, so we can't actually do anything much to the numerator, but for the denominator, we can actually expand it. So how do we expand the denominator? So that goes to these algebraic identities that we have learned earlier on. Right, so we can use this algebraic identity to expand the denominator. So in this case here, your a it's equals to square root 6, and your b, you can let it be the number 2. So that will give us bracket, make sure you bracket it, square root 6, close bracket to the power of 2, then plus 2, a is your square root 6, bracket it, b it's the number 2, plus bracket 2, close bracket square. Alright. Right, so that gives you square root 6 times square root 6, and that gives you a 6. So we can multiply the number, rearrange it. So 2 bracket square root 6 with another 2, you can rearrange it to become 2 times 2 times square root 6. And that gives you 4 square root 6. And of course, 2 squared is 4. So that's further simplified it. 6 plus 4 is 10. So 10 plus 4 square root 6. Right here, right, so if you look at the denominator, it's a combination of real number and the surds. So we have to apply this concept called rationalization. We have to rationalize the denominator, right? Rationalize the denominator means make the denominator an integer. So to rationalize the denominator, we have to rationalize it with this conjugate surds. So what is the conjugate surds? The conjugate surds will be 10 minus 4 square root 6. Right, so maybe for the, before we actually go about rationalizing it, we can actually make the number smaller. We can simplify it further if you want to. As you can see that there's a common factor 2 in the numerator as so also at the denominator. Because 8 it's 2 times 4. And then at the new denominator, you can actually factorize 2 out. And that will gives you 4 over 5 plus 2 square root 6. Right, so if you have done some simplification, you realize that the denominator is a much simpler form than the 10 plus 4 square root 6. Right, so the conjugate surds would be 5 minus 2 square root 6. Right, so if you make a number smaller, then the chances of you making mistake will be lesser. Okay, so now we can actually rationalize it. Rationalize the denominator now. Right, so how do I do it? I have to multiply it with 5 minus 2 square root 6 over 5 minus 2 square root 6. Alright, and that will become 4 bracket 5 minus 2 square root 6 close bracket. Alright, the denominator, what you get will be a squared minus b squared. Alright, what you get is a squared minus b squared. So that would be 5 squared minus bracket 2 square root 6 squared. Alright, do not confuse with the earlier one that we have done. So maybe I erase this off so that you won't be confused. Okay, so if you have forgotten how we get a squared minus b squared, this one, it's your a plus b. There's an earlier video on multiplications of a plus b times a minus b. You can watch it if you have forgotten. This is your a minus b. Right, so if you have a plus b multiplied with a minus b, you get a squared minus b squared. That's how we end up getting a 5 squared minus bracket 2 square root 6 close bracket squared. Okay, let's simplify further. So that will give us, use a distributive law, that will give us 20 minus 8 square root 6. And the denominator, you can use a calculator to help you work it out. If not, you can just do it mentally. So that will give you 2 times 2, 4 square root 6 times square root 6, 6. Otherwise, using the calculator is a very efficient way. If you use the calculator correctly, then what you'll be getting at the denominator would be 1. You'll get a 1 if you punch in the numbers correctly into the calculator. Alright, so we can simplify it further. 20 and 8. We can actually, not necessary that we can leave it as 20 minus 8 square root 6. Okay, that will be the answer. Right, so if you're given the questions of the sort, how do you go about solving it? I think no matter what questions you're given, right, always remember to simplify it before you apply the rules, or the rules such as like square root a times square root b gives you square root ab, or before you rationalize the denominator, always simplify the surds. Because when you simplify the surds, you make the surds in the simplified form, it's the chances of you making mistake is lesser. So if you look like square root 24, you can actually rewrite it as 4 times 6. And then 96, you can rewrite it as 16 times 6. Right, and 108, okay, if you have forgotten how to simplify it, you can just list out the factors. 2 times 54, okay, we want to list out until you can manage to find a perfect square. You can just use a calculator to help you. So 3 times 3, yeah, and then we can use this because 36 is the perfect square. Right, so 108, you can write it as 3 times 36. So you can use the same method to simplify 96 and 24. And then 12, you can write it as 3 times 4. Okay, here you apply the rules. Alright, so square root 4 will be 2, so they give us 2x square root 6. Square root 16 is 4, so 4 square root 6. Square root 36 is 6, so 6 square root 3. Square root 4 is 2, so it's 2x square root 3. Right, so our purpose is to find the values of x. So if you were to look at the equations, I have a term involving x on the left hand side. I also have another term involving x on the right hand side. So what do? You have to put them together. Alright, it's like you have some friends on the left, some friends on the right. You have to put them together so they can have a party. Right, so you can bring your 2x square root 3 to the left hand side, and then your 4 square root 6 to the right hand side. Okay, so what do you do next? You see that you see that there is a common factor 2x, so you can just factorize it. So basically, if you realize, right, math, it's the only I won't say the only, so sorry, most of the time it's either expansion or factorization. Okay, so 2x will be equal to 6 square root 3 minus 4 divided by, oh wait, hang on, maybe I should just factorize x because the purpose is to find the values of x, right? So I should just factorize x and not 2x. Okay, so I factorize x out. I'm left 2 square root 6 minus 2 square root 3. Right, continue in the next slide. Alright, so let's continue from here. Now if you look at the number carefully, you realize that we can actually factorize 2. Yeah, I can factorize 2 out on the left, also on the right, to make the number simpler. So how do we do it? If you factorize 2, you will get 2x bracket square root 6 minus square root 3. Then on the right hand side will be 2 bracket 3 square root 3 minus 2 square root 6. Right, and then what's the next thing we can do? We can divide by 2 on both sides. So what you are ended up with will be x bracket square root 6 minus square root 3 equals to 3 square root 3 minus 2 square root 6. Okay, why do you want to do that? Because if you can make the number smaller, you can make the surds in a more simplified form, the chances of you making mistake will be lesser. Right, so I want to find the values of x, so I need to divide both sides by square root 6 minus square root 3. So that will give us alright, so now we're ready to rationalize the denominator. So we need to rationalize it with the conjugate surds. So the conjugate surds will be conjugate is square root 6 plus square root 3. Okay, so now we're all ready to do it. So we can multiply with 3 square root 3. Sorry. We can multiply, multiply with square root 6 plus square root 3 at the numerator, also at the denominator. Alright, so the numerator, this will be what you'll be getting. And then the denominator, right, I've said it many times already, is your a minus b multiplied with the a plus b. So what you'll be getting is just a squared minus b squared, okay? Just remember that. So we'll be getting bracket square root 6 squared minus bracket square root 3 squared. Now this one you can just easily use a calculator. Just make sure you punch in it correctly. Right, you should get 3 as the answer. Alright, when you punch in the calculator, make sure you bracket it, bracket square root 6 and close bracket square. Alright, put the bracket there. The brackets are very important. I keep emphasizing you have to pay respect to the bracket. Numerator, you can't use a calculator. So what do? You use the distributive law. And it's not difficult because we have done it so many times already. If you've forgotten how to do it, just go back to the previous few videos I've done. Right, so what do we get? We get 3 square root 3 times square root 6. So that will give us 3 square root 18. And then 3 square root 3 times square root 3, so it will be 3 times 3, 9. Right, this will be 2 square root 6 times square root 6 will be 2 times 6, 12. And then plus times minus is minus, that will give us 2 square root 18. Then over 3. Alright, so let's simplify further. You can put your surds together and the numbers together. So 9 minus 12 is negative 3. Okay, let's simplify further. So 3 square root 18 minus 2 square root 18. Okay, what would you get? You will get, alright, never mind. If it's still not able to manage it, you can just factorize your square root 18. So 3 minus 2 is 1. So square root 18 times 1 will be just square root 18. So can you see that 18, you can still write it, express it as 2 times 9. Means you can simplify it further. As long as you can actually write it as a number and a perfect square, means you can that surds can be simplified further. So that will give you square root 2 times square root 9 minus 3 over 3. Square root 9 is 3, so they give us 3 square root 2 minus 3 over 3. Can you see we can factorize our 3 out? And that will give us square root 2 minus 1. Alright, so earlier on, the question says that you're supposed to express your answer in the form square root a plus b. Right, where both a and b are integers. So if you do a comparison, you see that a is equals to 2 and b is equals to negative 1. Right, so the questions appear to be very complicated. The solutions also appear to be complicated. Please do not give up. Right, as what I've mentioned earlier on, you just simplify the surds, okay, make it easier to manage, and then you apply the rules correctly, and as much as possible, use a calculator to help you. Calculator, it's a very good equipment to help you to arrive at the answer.